closed caption, selecting the closed captions icon located in the Zoom toolbar on desktop or mobile. If you don't see a closed captioning button, you will need to select the back arrow in the top left of your screen, then the settings cog icon, then meetings, then enable to show closed captioning when available. Toggle button. If you are having any difficulty doing so, please message us in the chat and we will try to help you if we can. So I just wanted to take a moment to remind ourselves about our community agreements. I'd like to go around and have 4 different people read these community agreements and ask that everyone agree to these. Please raise your hands if you can read one. Who is volunteering to read the first one?
I'd be happy to read it.
Please.
Safe space, brave space. Learning new things can be uncomfortable and challenging, requiring us all to be brave and step into our own discomfort. But our ability to be brave rests on a foundation of feeling safe, of being seen, heard, and respected. Wherever possible, strive to build a space that is both safe and brave.
Oh, thank you. The second point. Is anyone volunteering to read it?
I can read it.
Please.
Take space, make space, be aware of the space you are or are not taking up. If you've been participating a lot, try making space for others. If you've not participated very much, try taking up more space.
Thank you so much, Amy. Third point.
What's shared here stays here. What's learned here leaves here. People may share things about themselves and their stories that are personal. Let's hold confidentiality for one another by only sharing our learnings, not other people's stories outside of the space.
Thank you so much. And the fourth and last point. So Ili will read it.
I can keep going.
Go for it.
Yeah, we have to
Yeah.
be present and lean in, engage meaningfully and authentically in the conversation that's going on in the virtual room, not the one on your phone.
Thank you so much. So can I get a thumbs up for everyone who can commit to these community agreements? Thank you. So we'll talk about our goals agenda for today. So the goals for our Story of Us section are: learn how to tell the story of our community, specifically of you all as participants in CCAN's organizing one-on-one mini-series in a way that reflects our shared values, hopes, and experiences. Build a stronger sense of community and connectedness. The goals for our Story of Now section are: learn how story can move us to action and learn how to bridge from us into action. We will start off by introducing facilitators, introduction of a story of us, watching and discussing an example of story of us, brainstorming, drafting, and practicing each person's story of us, share and debrief stories of us in a large group, then break for lunch. And now I'm going to pass it off to Ayla to introduce the story of us. And thank you so much. Ayla, please, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Can I get a thumbs up that y'all can hear me? So many. Awesome. Cool. So we started off our Organizing 101 mini-series with a training on Story of Self, which is, the story of why you are called to organize others to be taking action on climate justice. You're telling the story of self to enable other people to get you, to understand who you are and where you're coming from, And our stories of self are interwoven with stories that we share with others and the communities that we're a part of. And each of these communities also have their stories of their own as well. These include stories of our family, community, faith tradition, school, profession, organizations, nations, and perhaps the world. So then after practicing thinking through our personal stories, we also did a relational meeting where you shared your story of self and you built a relationship with others in the room to practice identifying shared values and interests. And so now we're moving on to the story of us. And the story of us enables us to get one another, to show what values, experience, aspirations will appeal to the audience in the room with you or the virtual room. And in this case, we're talking about our community of Organizing 101 participants, and to get this audience to join you in taking action. So in order to move people to act, the story of us needs to articulate a set of values that are rooted in a common experience. So what we experience as us. The us right now is obviously the participants in this training. And by learning to tell the story of us, we bring these values that we share alive, and they become a source of courage, hope, and solidarity for us. So thank you all for introducing yourselves. We'll be using the chat quite a bit throughout the training today. So if at any point you have questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat. And I would like to start off with just highlighting what folks shared at the beginning of the training. So thinking about the questions, what was something that you learned last week that has been helpful to you as an activist and organizers? Or what values, moments, and life choices you realize you have in common with others in this training. So if anyone wants to come off mute and share what they shared at the beginning of this training, or anyone in the room wants to come, I'll just stay off mute, and we can just highlight this for a little moment. So what was something that you learned last week that has been or will be helpful to you as an activist or an organizer?
I learned about, well, I took in the recommendation that instead of looking at experience with another person in the group as a way to accomplish a certain ask or commitment, it's just as important to, and maybe more important, to just connect well with the person. And not be too rooted in the idea, getting a milestone set. And
Yeah,
I like that because it's people are at different stages in what they're doing here, and the important underlying thing is to get to know each other and find each other's company helpful. So that's good for me.
yeah, I hear you. Like solidarity and shared values is really the base of what any like real sustained movement is going to be built on, and being flexible in what you're asking of people based on what you're connecting with them.
Yeah, letting it grow kind of organically.
Yeah. I want to highlight what Britt said in the chat, connecting with others through stories and finding common ground through that. Sounds like a shared learning from what Peter was sharing as well. Does anyone else want to come off mute and share something that they've learned that will help you grow as an activist? Go ahead. Oh. We can't hear you.
Mustafa.
Oh, hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Thanks, Isla, Mustafa. And I was just, I was just thinking that a number of us shared really significant life choices that we had all sort of made to be here at CCAN, whether in a staff or volunteer capacity. I think about, King's whole public narrative, where she talked about, the moment of submitting her resignation to her previous job, and then getting plugged into CCAN, of also thinking about the experience of some of the other folks in the room, and particularly like with folks like Johanna, who talked about like her daughter having asthma. I was thinking about particularly like with Syra and with Ellie, that there was just a number of personal, like really sort of meaningful and profound personal choice moments that are really life-shaping. And that was like really just like, it was really really powerful to hear, and I think it's really just informing my sense of where people are coming from.
Awesome, thank you. I agree. And Uda, I saw that you unmuted, so I want to give you a chance to answer the question aloud too.
Yeah, it was fascinating what brought us all together, what people's life experiences were. But basically, it was it just reinforced something that I already know and believe, and that is the power of listening to people and giving them a chance to be themselves, to show themselves. And then if they're interested in hearing my story, then we really have then we have the connection that we can build on.
That's so beautiful. I totally hear you, and it just reminds me that like what we're talking about here is not so complex or foreign. Like it's just listening to people, connecting. Like it's so telling stories. Like it's so innate to humans.
One to add.
Go ahead.
Hope everyone can hear me. I guess I'm trying to explain what or articulate what shared value this is. But we had a lot of shared kind of experiences and shared emotions in this room, I think, with people not necessarily understanding at first where they necessarily fit within the movement. And I think that is also part of my story of self and my public narrative that you all may have heard, may have gotten through my sharing of that. But that there is a sense, at least in this room, and I know not everybody got to hear our stories who's on the Zoom call, that as people kind of took baby steps or not so baby steps, as people took steps outside of their comfort zone, there was sort of a finding of place. And I think that in the climate movement and in some other movements, there's sometimes a barrier or the feeling of a barrier where people aren't sure like if they truly belong in a certain space or in a certain movement. And I am hoping that this shared experience for all of us has helped to break down that barrier a little bit.
Oh, and I'd also like to add to what Kate just a yes on the postscript. And trying to find the common ground where everyone gets together. You don't necessarily have to agree on everything. You don't have to have the same shared values. You can have differences of opinion and all taken together will lead to that common ground. And that's the way I felt in particularly last Saturday working. Everyone had differences of opinion, but we all had the same common ground. We wanted to, like, i.e., save the planet. You know, we're worried about the environment and animals. So anyway, again, finding the common ground. You don't necessarily have to agree on everything. There could be those differences of opinion, and you can agree to disagree. So that's what I thought.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's very true, and I think that leads us well into our next section where Ting is going to talk about who is the us that we're talking about today.
Waiting for this, okay. So who is the us? It is through shared stories, as we experienced last week and as we'll be working on today, that we establish the identities and express the values of the communities in which we participate. That could be family, faith, nation, your local action team, whatever it might be. And of new communities that we're forming, including all of you as amazing volunteer Seekin organizers. The character in the story of us, which might be a new concept, the character is the people that you're motivating to act. And to continue to build this community, you, the training participants, all of us here are the us. You could think about the training group more broadly, or perhaps your specific breakout group or the people in the room with you. So although, do we need a new slide? Perhaps not. Although the reach of a story of us may extend far beyond the people in the room, it becomes real only in the experience of the people in the room, or not. The test is simple. So as we heard this story, whatever story of us you're hearing, did we begin to feel like an us? Do we feel like we have a real human, genuine connection to one another? So if you think about the moments you shared earlier, maybe last week, or we'll certainly be sharing more moments today, or moments that you've shared previously through your experiences with CCAN. The experience of shared values may grow out of stories of historic moments we remember or have heard of. They might be stories of life events like having children, stories of being invited to join this mini-series, stories of what happened the first time you met with a CCAN organizer or a volunteer leader, or the first time you decided to take action to address the climate crisis. And like all stories, the more detailed, the more specific, and the more visual they are, the more effective they will be. What were the actual names of the Organizing 101 participants or the trainers involved? What did they look like? How were they different? Sometimes stories of us emphasize obvious differences in race, religion, gender, age, for example, or may actually highlight commonality of values or common purpose. So before we move on to the next slide and talk about narrative structure, what were the three components for the story of self structure? Does anybody remember that? You can go back and perhaps look at grids that you filled out to help you with that question. What were the three components for the story of self that we went over last week? You might have an extra component on some of those grids, but the main three.
Challenge.
Yes.
The choice
Yeah.
you took and outcome.
Very good. Challenge, choice, and outcome. Well done, Preston. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Preston. And that's the good news. The good news is that the structure of the story of us is the same as the story of self. When you talk about your story of us, you're going to talk about a challenge, a choice, and an outcome. But instead of a challenge and a choice that you made, it's a challenge that's shared by the us of the people who came to this training, and a choice and outcome that all of us made together. So for example, when you're talking about the challenge, you can think about a challenge that all of you shared. One that I just heard Ting talk about was the shared challenge of not being sure you belong in the climate space. And then what is the choice that all of you made when faced with that challenge? One that comes up for me was that all of you choose to come here and choose to do your workshops and do your homework and meet other people. And like Uta said, to listen deeply to them and to build that relationship. And then you talk about the outcome. What happened? Because you had this challenge, you weren't sure you belonged, you decide to spend 8 hours of your Saturday on a sunny day, hanging out with people on Zoom, you built some relationships, you leaned into the trainings, and then what happened? Well, what happened is hopefully you felt like an us and you felt recommitted to join the climate movement, and you will sign up for something at the end of the day and be involved with your action team and feel prepared to engage and build this movement. So that's how you would apply this challenge, choice, and outcome to an us instead of a you. And we have a very good example for what this looks like, and I'm ready to talk it through. We're going to look at a video from 2007. It's from a woman named Susan Christopher. She was a volunteer who volunteered with President Obama's campaign in 2007. And this video was taken during a training similar to a training you just went through that we're in right now. Professional Marshall Gantz was at this training that Susan Christopher was at, and he's the same person whose pedagogy we're applying here today. So Susan Christopher and all the participants in that room spent a weekend crafting their story of selves, crafting their story of us, and thinking about their shared values and meeting each other. And then what you're about to hear is when at the end of their workshop, they asked volunteers to stand up and share their story of us, and this is what she shared. And something that I find really useful about Susan's story is that her experience is similar to a lot of ours. Like if you just think about what makes a compelling story, literally what she did was she went and she sat in a gym with people for like a day and a half. But in that, there were so many connections that she was able to learn from people in the room, share her own story, and really feel deeply that I'm really excited because I think it mirrors a lot of the struggle we have as well. It's like, okay, we're on Zoom. Where are the stories? The stories are in our shared value and relationships. So we're going to play this and then debrief. As you hear Susan's story, think about her challenge and the shared values and what experiences she uses, what real examples she uses to communicate that to you.
Well, when I showed up yesterday, I came with a great deal of hesitation. I know that's like speaking heresy to a lot of people here, but I came hesitant. And it was because I was afraid to believe in a candidate again and be disillusioned again. And I was afraid to pick a losing cause again. And I'm a busy person. I'm a mom. I've got a job. We're leaving on family vacation. And I thought, you know what? I'll just show up. I'll show up. I'll see if it's worth my time. And then I can leave. If it's not going anywhere, I can just leave. It's okay. This campaign isn't it for me. And then I sat down and Marshall started talking, and he started talking about working with Cesar Chavez and marching in Mississippi, and I could feel my heart start beating a little faster. And then I sat down in my group and men wept who saw Bobby Kennedy shot and felt that loss of hope and a loss of everything that he embodied in that generation. And to have people like Marshall and those men sit there and say that for them, Barack Obama was the return of that hope. I just began to have that hesitation melt away. I felt my heart softening again. I felt myself able to give a little bit more of me to this process. And then we shared our personal stories, and a Catholic and a Muslim and a Protestant and a Jewish man shared their personal stories. And we had just about every race encompassed in those personal stories, all within that faith difference. And I sat there, and in my language, I would say I felt the pleasure of God in this room. I could feel how special and how big what sits in this room was. And I could feel that this campaign is about something really big and really important, and it's the beginning of a healing for our nation and a healing of generations. And the generations that came before that marched with King and people who are just now graduating from high school, we're all working together. We're mentoring each other, and we're moving forward. And I realize it doesn't matter if Barack actually fails me, and it doesn't matter if we win. It does. I'm in it to win it. But this campaign has made us win already.
Thank you all so much for listening to that. Let's do a quick debrief. Can someone name a challenge that you heard Susan talk about?
Fear of the pain of loss again.
Yeah, fear of the pain of loss. Raise your hand if you've ever been disappointed by a political candidate and being afraid of that. Yeah, so that's something that I think one reason she does that is that that's a shared challenge with the other people in that room. And then what was her choice? Can someone identify that?
To engage.
I heard someone say to engage. It was a little faint, right? Okay. Was someone else off mute?
I mean, she chose just to kind of like show up and give it a try, you know.
Yeah, exactly that. She talks about her hesitation and says that she decided to go over there. And then what was the outcome?
She found something that she believed in again.
Yeah, exactly right. What are some of the details, images, and moments that bring her story alive?
One of the things for me was that she, right at the beginning, almost the first thing she said was that she was hesitant about coming to the meeting, and that's probably sacrilege to everyone here. And that, to me, profoundly said, I'm not part of it. I'm worried I'm not part of it.
Yeah, I resonated with that. And that was a real thing that I think all of us could picture, us sitting in our cars wondering, are we going to drive over there? It's across town. Is that really going to be what we do? What else? What did you hear?
For me, this is Mary Villa. For me, when she invoked the name of Cesar Chavez, whom I met during the great boycott. So that really resonated with me.
Nice. Mary, thank you for sharing that. I'd love to hear about when you met him too. But yes, I think that's something that you all can think through for our stories as well, is what are the lessons and the teachers that you've heard in someone else's story of self? If someone says, I care about this value because I was involved in this growing up, because I had been involved with a campaign in the past, or it was a shared thing from their mentors or their family.
I think another image that was really strong for me was just all of the descriptors that she gave of the diversity in the room. So she was talking about how there were people who were Catholic, Muslim, Protestant, Jewish. There were people who had marched with King. There were high schoolers. So she gave all these different types of diversity that you could really picture coming together into this one room and feel inspired by, and maybe like see yourself in, even though we weren't in that room, we weren't necessarily in that us, but as viewers of this story, we could relate to and feel incorporated in that us.
Exactly. That's a really important point. Can you say what value that you saw when Susan invoked that story?
A value of diversity, of difference, and community. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I'm looking at my slide note. That's one of the ones that we want to hit too. What are the other values that someone saw?
Also, the value that she mentioned when Robert Kennedy was assassinated, that we lost hope as a nation. And when Barack Obama was running for president, he brought back that sense of hope to the nation. And she felt that that gave her a sense of winning again.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That's something that I really I see in Susan's story as well.
Also, it was reference to the loss of Bobby Kennedy. She noticed that other people were so affected by his loss. They were in tears. So naturally, she had the same shared emotion. She was affected herself because it was just as much as important to her as it was to the people who were in tears about it. So sharing emotion, strong emotional feeling.
100%. Thank you all so much. And I hope that as you're getting to know the other people on this training, whether on Zoom or in the room, we can think about the values that we all share and keep an eye for when we can, like Uta said, just listen deeply to each other. And like, I apologize, I don't know who said that from Nova, but who is ready to share those emotions with each other as well. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go into breakouts. Here's our agenda for the breakouts. We're going to start off with some logistics, make sure you have a timekeeper. You'll review the agenda. And then we're going to really dive in and hone the us. Just like you just did hearing Susan Christopher's story, you'll think about the values that you all share as a group. Maybe some of the same ones that she shared, but you'll think about the values that you all share as a group and we share as training participants, and you'll brainstorm sometimes when you noticed that. And then you'll go and have some silent writing time. And then we'll go around and share your stories in the breakouts. And then there'll be a little bit of coaching, and we'll come back into the big room and have a couple people share. So if you are in person, go into your breakouts and come back at, Mustafa, correct me if I'm wrong, 12:44. You're muted. Mustafa, you're still, yeah, go ahead.
Just get into the breakouts right now.
Yeah. So we'll be in breakouts for an hour. If you're in person, you can start your breakout facilitation and we'll come back at 12:44. If you're online, Mustafa is about to open the rooms. There'll be a room for the 757 Hampton Roads action team, and then there'll be a room for everyone else online, which will be Maryland. Yeah. So if you're in person, enjoy, and we'll see you for the wrap up in an hour. And if you're online, the breakout rooms will open.
Awesome. I think we've got everybody back. Thank you all so much for doing the breakouts. I know that to me, the story of us is always, for me, and I think for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, is the most challenging because of the pieces of the public narrative versus the story of self or the story of now. Because the story of self is your own experience that you can draw upon. That, you know, the story of us really requires very active listening. It requires, you know, I think a deeper reflection, energy, just to make like the human moments and the human connections and we're like remembering them. And then the story of now is really framed around an ask of what we can do to address the collective challenge that we're facing. And so I just wanted to thank y'all. I know it's hard, but this is can serve as a real grounding for being able to practice telling the story of the people in this room, telling the story of your own community, whoever the us is that you're trying to tell the story of, or to rally those folks to action, and just building the muscle for doing that. So thank you. I wanted to give probably two folks an opportunity just to share the story of us that they drafted. So we'll do 2 minutes on the story of us, and I'll either do 1 or 2 minutes on coaching, and then we'll get this wrapped up by 12:55 so folks can get on to lunch. So my understanding is we got Britt from Hampton Roads. Let's go with Britt.
Hello. Okay, so I guess I'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
The first time I realized we didn't live in a world of guaranteed progress, things felt hopeless and even hostile. I felt like everywhere I looked, we kept losing vital footholds in civil rights, environmental protections, and democracy. I had to get involved, but didn't know how or if it would make a difference. Despite a spiral of helplessness, I found CCAN and took a chance. I was terrified. I'd never organized before. What if I wasn't helpful? What if I messed up? Worse, what if I was helpful and did everything right and we still kept losing? I showed up anyway. I showed up to an invasive vine removal event. I remember looking at this big field of trees covered in stubborn, thick vines, then looking at our small team of 5. I remember Ruth saying, I don't know if we're going to get through this today. There are a lot of trees out there. We tried anyway. With our small team, we did it. I realize this is how we do this. We get together, we take one step at a time. Or in this case, one tree at a time. Through CCAN, I met people who shared my values. Many of them were also new to organizing. We started to build a community. We started to set goals and celebrate the small wins. And together, we started carving footholds of progress for bigger ones in the future. We're taking it one step, one tree at a time.
Round of applause for Britt. Amazing, amazing. That was so great. Just a few comments on why, from my perspective, it's really good. One of the things that's hard, and just focusing on the story of us, is you have to have some sort of brief personal connection that you articulate. There's got to be a self, because you're part of the us, right? So even though we're not totally fleshing out a story of self in this moment, to me that was like really clear in your concerns around just democracy, fighting for democracy, fighting for finding a place like CCAN, and like, is this going to be worth my time? Or is this going to succeed? All those hesitancies. So it's clear challenge, and there's a choice to take a chance on it and to invest in doing it. And then the outcome of going to the Vine event. And then you realize, right, in this Vine event that you've got people with the same set of experiences that are new to the organizing work. And you all have decided to save one tree at a time together. So really, really cool. How did this, taking a moment, Britt, how does this feel to you right now?
It felt really good. It was really cool to like finally make that connection of like, I actually felt that way during the vine removal event, and then like being able to put it in words and articulate it. It was kind of cool to hear that like other people who went to the vine removal event felt the same way.
Yeah, I think this was like, even though like I wasn't there, I could implicitly feel like this connection. And so one of the things that I would just note is, the only thing I would note is that you could take 20 seconds to bake into the story of any recognition around the same set of values for the people even in this room, right? Because like if you wanted to make the pitch in the story of now for the folks who are showing up to this training to join you all for the invasive vine removal, it's like you could say, oh, and I also realized with you all last week that when so-and-so said this about conservation or like protecting our green spaces, that you could make that connection and really clearly sort of experientially articulate the shared value. But it was really, really beautiful, Britt. Amazing. And you should be very, very proud of coming up with this in the training. Amazing. Great. Thank you so much, Britt. We'll do one more person. Let's go with Uda, because I think we didn't have somebody from Maryland last time. So we'll do Uda. Uda, would you?
Yeah.
Would you
Okay,
be up for
I'll
doing-
time myself. 2 minutes.
Yeah, great.
Okay, some people may not know that I grew up Hungary in post-war Germany. And so I have a big thing about not wasting food or overconsumption in general. So every year, the Business Association here in Baltimore, Pigtown, does a festival, and they always have a pie eating contest. And I've talked to the heads of the association, and they agree that it's disgusting, but it's so popular, we just have to do it. And twice now, the city councilwoman has won the contest, and I sent her a letter about it, about the health issues, and that it's not a good example for the hungry children who don't get enough food. And I guess it's still going on. I don't go to the festival until it's over. Anyway, I wrote her a letter. She didn't answer it, but one time when I saw her on lobby day, she knew exactly who I was and where I lived. So who knows? Next time I see her, I'll bring it up. My other thing is that because we live in a row house area and then have light industrial, there are a lot of older buildings or open areas. And what's going in there are these storage unit buildings. They're very quick to put up. And we must have, just in this neighborhood alone, about 7 of them. And it just points to the overconsumption of our society, that we have so much stuff we have to rent units. And yeah, that's my time. I'll stop there.
Great. Round of applause to Uda. Thank you so much for sharing that. So Uda, I really liked particularly your articulation of like yourself and talking about your experience growing up, being poor, recognizing the challenge of overconsumption and gross overconsumption, and the pie eating contest. Oh God, I don't like those. So I had a revolting reaction. In the conversation in the breakout today, was there anything that was shared by others where they also shared that concern? Was there a moment of sharing that concern about overconsumption with others in the group?
Trying to remember. Somebody help me out here.
Kind of. And you also spoke about an example in your own life regarding water and what you do to minimize your own waste.
Yeah, that I do composting and I take it to the woods. And it's very hard for me with my housemates when they just run the water. I can't stand it because our well would run dry and we had to go get water from the neighbor in a pail. So yeah.
The 2 quick things I'll say, and then we'll wrap up so people can, I don't want to stand between people and lunch, is I would pose the question about who the us is, right? Like we want to get to a really clear sense of the experiential us. So the people either in the room or in the community, but particularly like the folks in the room. And so I would think of, continue to talk to folks about their concerns, of their experiences of overconsumption, of waste, and those conversations that you have, I think will really lean into creating the story of us that's around that shared value. But thank you so much for sharing that.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. So we'll be back here at 1:25. We'll get started immediately. Leonis will kick us off to remind us about why we're practicing public narrative, and then Isla and Dustin will take us into the story of now. So thanks y'all so much. Come back 1:25.
Okay, awesome. I don't think I introduced myself last time, but my name's Lianis. I'm the Hampton Roads organizer. Hope everybody had a really good and nutritious lunch. And so now that we're back to the rest of our training, I wanted to give a reminder on why we're practicing public narrative. So, the biggest reason for CCAN to be launching this Organizing 101 mini-series is because we want to continue to build a powerful grassroots organizing infrastructure that's grounded by an organized team of people on the ground who are driving the work. As we have discussed in previous power hours and in membership meetings, we want to build semi-autonomous CCAN action member teams of 3 to 7 people in your communities that are working to build power and take on local climate justice campaigns along with CCAN priority campaigns. However, in order to get there, we need to train our volunteers on the tactics we need to do base building and outreach and to create a stronger, tighter-knit community of volunteer activists. In other words, as the participant guide highlights on page, is it page 12? It might be another page, regarding page 12, regarding the 5 key organizing practices. 1, we need to create a shared story as CCAN activists, organizers, and volunteers. And 2, develop a shared relational commitment to one another, not just to CCAN or to a CCAN organizer. Public narrative is a leadership practice. It's a way to connect the core elements of leadership practice: story, why we must act now; strategy, how we can act now; and action, what we must do to act now. Our public narrative helps all of us interpret with each other why we should change the world. And I'm guessing it's the same slide. Okay, awesome. And so how will we use it? So this skill is extremely helpful for a number of things, including doing one-on-one relationship building and outreach, helping to educate, agitate, and recruit your friends, family members, and community members to get involved in a way that's meaningful to them in the climate justice fight. 2, being a storyteller and many different forums to advocate for communities and issues that you care about. It could be for writing a letter to the editor, a blog post, doing a social media video, or speaking in front of a crowd. Or 3, being able to effectively tell your story. The story of our community and the story of the challenge that you're all facing right now can be a really helpful tool for having high impact meetings with elected officials. And 4, building up action teams, which I think we have action teams in all of our regions. So really, really exciting news versus last year. Being able to model, inviting folks to share their own stories, and having experiences that enable you to develop a story of us and a shared commitment to each other is critical to building a sustainable team. We've all been in a meeting where we have a clear purpose or know what we are going to do next, or that we felt a strong connection to the people in the room. This is the problem we're trying to solve.
And
Yes, it's me.
no, Isla's up next.
Oh, go ahead.
That's my fault. Sorry, y'all. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. So I just wanted to once again kind of ground us in a story of us. So the story of us that I'm feeling and resonating with today. So we can think about using it as a jumping off point for our story of now. So, I came to this training last week feeling a little frazzled, honestly. It was a really busy couple of days. I was feeling a little worn thin. I had some heavy bags, and maybe I was a little nervous too to lead this training in person for the first time. But like I have always done ever since I started organizing, I approached it as an experiment. I told myself, I'll learn something, I'll build some relationships, and it will be all right. And as the day went on, I really did start to feel more energized in the way that spending time with people can sometimes do. I felt in my breakout room and also online a real sense of camaraderie as we shared our stories of self and sometimes had to be a little more vulnerable than we're used to when we, meet someone for the first time. I heard over and over that a lot of us were like doing what we could do to take action on climate, in different ways, like volunteering at a community garden, like Wes, or working on climate professionally, like Kevin, Peter, and Rachel, and so many of us. And a lot of us reached the point where we felt like we needed to do more, whether this was, retiring or losing your job, or something a little bit more emotional, like Syra's story about, her pet being threatened because of the dangers of methane gas and gas leaks. I know when Syra told her story about the gas leak threatening her dog, I know I teared up a bit. I know Mustafa teared up a little bit. And I can bet a lot of us in the room and online, felt some emotion about that because, we share this value of connecting with others and, taking care of loved ones, whether that's our pets, our kids, our neighbors, our communities. And I also heard this value of like safety and security coming through really strong in Ellie's story too. How Ellie learned how to fight and protect the trans community in Virginia, and build safe spaces. It's that same value of like safety, security, like fighting for what we care about. And then I heard that today too. I heard Uda talking about just how valuable it is to listen to each other and to be heard, and how, fundamental that kind of is. I hear that as a shared value too, just like listening. And, we all made the choice to be here today, whether in person or online. And, we've talked in little ways about how organizing requires us to get out of our comfort zone or do something we're a little nervous to do. We're not sure what our place is. Or maybe we're more curious about it, like what would this be like? But whether, you're getting out of your comfort zone or this feels really comfortable for you, we all made this choice to be here, to get to know each other and to like really engage and build this power and community. And I know for me, it gives me energy. It reminds me why we're doing this, and it pulls me out of that like kind of frazzled, disoriented state and just kind of grounds me into, what are we doing this, and inspires me. So I hope it inspires all of you too.
You go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, can we get move to the next slide, please?
Sorry.
All right. So the story of now. Story of now is a call to action. And it's called a story of now because the need to act is urgent. It's not a story of email your congressperson sometime this month. It's about right now. So during the story of now, we're going to ask the people from the story of us to take action on the values that we share. We want them to do something with us. So that could be going to a rally, signing a petition, committing to fully investing in this training series or another one. We get them to say yes to our action with hope. We share a challenging vision of what's going to happen if we don't act, a hopeful vision of what could be if we do act, and then give them a clear way to take action. So in Washington, D.C., on August 23rd, 1963, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told a story of what he called the fierce urgency of now. And the most famous part of this speech is his dream, words we've all heard. But we often forget that the dream is urgent because of the nightmare of racial oppression. We can't live within that nightmare anymore. And if we did not act now, we could never realize that dream. So in a story of now, story and strategy overlap through hope. Without a dream we're fighting towards and a clear way to get there, we won't have something that we can hope for. Next slide, please. So when you're crafting a story of now, it's going to have the same three components: your challenge, that choice, and then that outcome. So we're going to name the challenge that some or all of us are facing in this room, and or a challenge that you think we're going to be motivated to address based on shared values. Then that outcome, a plausible pathway to action, a sense of the possible, of what could be if we act right now. And then that choice, a choice to commit to that pathway of action that each person in our group can make right now. So the choice that we're going to offer must be more than we must all choose to be better people or choose to do any one of this list of 53 things, which really minimizes their impact, or go to this website and click this button. A meaningful choice requires action that we can take right now, action that we can take together, and an outcome that we could collectively achieve. So we're going to listen to a video of a special guest.
And Dustin, I'm going to play it, but in the first few seconds, if you could just give a thumbs up if this sound is coming through, that would be great.
Good morning. My name is Dustin Branch. I'm the Baltimore Regional Coordinator with CCAN. 8 years and 100 days into the second part of the Trump era, I still can't believe it. Every morning over the past few months, with every executive order, every news story about an institution being dismantled or someone being detained or even deported based on how they look or what they've said, I've just felt this overwhelming feeling of not being able to get ahead. And all of the progress that we've fought so hard for over the past 60 years is being erased with the stroke of a pen. How can we possibly make our way through all this? While these widespread attacks on our democracy and our lives are unpredictable and unprecedented, we've also been here before. One memory that I've committed to holding on to is from right after the 2020 presidential caucus in Las Vegas, Nevada, the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, where I was stuck with 2 organizers in a volunteer's house when hotels closed, travel back home to Florida was restricted. Now, there were times where it just felt silly trying to get groceries, find a card game that we hadn't all played. But it eventually got serious, where it became clear that this is not just the flu. It's not just something that only the elderly should worry about. Everyone was in danger, and no one knew where things would end up. But for the briefest moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped. I noticed that people were being kinder. They were taking the time to understand and help each other, even when they might not have done it before. Even for us, instead of turning out voters for Bernie, in the final months of the primary, we used our national phone banking system to direct tens of thousands of people to mutual aid resources where they could get food and life-saving services. And across the country, we saw things like workers taking on their bosses for better conditions and winning. Our path forward was never clearer. But as plastic barriers came down, the old divisions came back even stronger. It doesn't always feel like those victories are possible today. Now, I don't think it should take an entire pandemic for folks to start working together, but why stop? Why couldn't we keep that going? We know that it's going to take all of us to protect our communities because the stories we've shared today demonstrate that we can't do this on our own. We can't stand up for our communities from being bullied on our own. We can't make wealthy landlords have safe buildings on our own. We can't reduce respiratory illnesses on our own or stop the building of a fossil fuel plant. It's going to take knocking on doors and making phone calls. It's going to take sharing our stories with a stranger who might have thought they were the only one. But now they know they have a place in our movement. It's going to take you making that next step by signing up for your next team meeting and bringing everything you've learned in this Organizing 101 series to communities that have been left out for far too long. Right here in Baltimore, our next team meeting is at the very end of the month on May 28th. Our organizers in Virginia hold regular monthly meetings in Fairfax, Richmond, and Hampton Roads. We have monthly meetings going on in Washington, D.C., and if you're in Montgomery County or Prince George's County, we need your help to launch volunteer teams and hold meetings over the next month. These teams are going to help us build power together and reach out to more people who may also be feeling uncertain, provide them with community and a structure that we're going to use to fight back and win together. So I want everyone to take a couple seconds, post in the chat. Let us know if you want to attend the next meeting and help us recruit others to attend. I'm going to give it.
You can post in the chat. I'm gonna give actually, this is real. Dustin is making this ask. Post in the chat, tell people in the room whether you want to come to the next meeting, and we'll make sure, the organizer will make sure to coordinate with you. I'm gonna let Dustin finish.
Give everyone a couple seconds. All right. So you've already taken the first step, and we need you to take the next one and keep going to build the momentum that we are going to need to win. So once you do that, we are going to achieve the victories that we seek the only way that we know how, together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. Woo! I know y'all are signing up for the next thing. Dustin, Dustin made the ask. So thanks for doing that. Okay. I'm going to just for a moment stop sharing the slides here so I can really see you all. But I would love for folks we're just gonna have a conversation about what was the challenge that Dustin named. Let's talk through the elements of the story of now.
And Brad Point is talking about the environmental progress being stopped by the new administration to shut everything that you worked for over the last 60 years or longer was now being adversely impacted by the stroke of the path.
Yeah, right. And he's in the middle of this he's wrapping up the campaign, the caucuses for Bernie in Nevada, and they're trying to figure out, like, they've built out this organizing infrastructure. How do they pivot it? How do we pivot it to meet the moment that the pandemic is presenting? And so what was the choice? What's the choice that Dustin, with that challenge that he shared? What's the choice that both Dustin sort of summarized that they made, but he's also asking for us to make?
To make a room for a meeting, to get together?
Yeah, yes, I think that is certainly yes, that is the concrete choice. And I think also in terms of the values, it's the choice that we need to build. We have to build in, like, we need to choose to build infrastructure, right? Like, even more broadly, taking it a step back, we need to choose to build infrastructure that's going to meet the moment that we're in. But yes, the outcome from the request, the ask that he's making is join the team. Absolutely. Were there any details that stood out to you all that helped to bring this story alive? One of the things I would like to note is that I think Dustin did a nice job of just briefly sort of naming how his story of self and a collective experience that our country had, and then connecting it to the story of now, and really leaning into the story of now. But what details stood out to you? Did you all feel overwhelmed at the beginning of the pandemic?
I was just about to add, yeah, just kind of like the contextual framing of the time period,
Yeah.
the end of the Trump administration and then the beginning of COVID. I definitely could like envision myself back in that time period and also like struggling to find ways to be politically involved and just finding things to do, period. So yeah, that was definitely very vivid for me.
Yeah, and talking about living in a house with other folks, with a volunteer's house and with other colleagues, that really stood out to me. Must have been a little bit stressful. Yeah. Great. Well, and then also, there's a lot of broad values that are in Dustin's story. Everything from democracy and fighting fascism to building community, and so does a nice job leaning into those. So I want to pivot into talking about how we put all of this together, the story of self, us, and now. And so let me get back to sharing my screen. Okay. Can folks see the slides here?
Yes, but we can see the ones on the side too, but it's okay.
Yeah. Let me get to a slideshow here. Okay. Yeah, okay. So, I just want to have name just a few reminders. One is to help set the stage for, we're going to actually watch Ting's video again. But a couple of reminders. One is the public narrative combines the story of self, us, and now, and it's for a reason. They all inform the actions that we take. So crafting these stories, the stories of self, us, and now, allows us to find the links between why yourself is called to this mission, why we as a community, us, the people that are part of this training, are called to this mission, and what our mission calls on us to do now. And so we call, so number two, our stories contain multitudes, and as you practice, you will develop many stories, and you'll fit them together like pieces of the puzzle in the correct moment, right? The public narrative that you share in this space is not going to necessarily be the same public narrative that you're going to share when you go meet with a legislator and you're talking about making polluters pay. There might be a lot of the same elements, but the story of now and the story of us may shift depending on who is the us that you're talking about specifically and what you are calling on the person to which you are sharing the story with to do. And most importantly, storytelling just takes practice. I know like this it can be very frustrating. It can be very challenging. I honestly, even for myself, every few months, I set aside some time where I just look back at my set of experiences and I, think about all my different sort of versions of story of self, and are there different sets of experiences now that I've had, because we're always in a constant state of becoming. We're being shaped by the things that are around us. And so The goal here is to not, at the end of this, is to not leave with the final script of your public narrative that you're just going to use over and over and over again. The goal is just to help you learn a process. This is just a process by which you can generate your narrative over and over again, when and where, however you need it to motivate yourself or others to take action. So we're going to take time just to review, to watch the video again. We're going to have a very brief discussion about it. I would love for you to think about what stands out to you now that you've gone through the training. Are there things that occurred to you about how Ting has structured the public narrative, the pieces of the public narrative that maybe didn't resonate with you or didn't click with you when you started the training last week?
It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I was in my room, in my pajamas, as my spouse watched me pace back and forth. Should I do it? I should just do it. Should I do it? I'm gonna do it. I took out my phone and I started typing. Because I have a flair for the dramatic, I wanted to get this done before the day was out. I am feeling compelled, deeply, I typed at the end of the resignation email, to spend my time and energy joining the struggle against the climate crisis. I believe that in the coming years, we all will have some role to play. Happy Earth Day, Ting. And I pressed send. But let's back up a little bit, as this was only one in a long trail of steps outside my comfort zone, which just keeps expanding. I grew up as the only kid I knew whose family composted and consistently used a clothesline. I had a general sense of having progressive values, disliking waste, and a dim understanding of the greenhouse effect, fossil fuels, and global warming. Let me pause my story here to say that there were, however, a whole lot of people who had much more than a dim understanding of the link between fossil fuels and climate change, and even when I was a child in the 90s, had known about this link for decades. People who worked for the fossil fuel industry at big companies like ExxonMobil. Fast forward to 2016, when I became pregnant with my first kid. Towards the end of my first trimester, to my complete shock, Donald Trump won the election. For the first time, I wondered if I'd made a mistake deciding to have a child. Life went on, and I didn't yet dive into the world of politics and activism, but I did dive headlong into the world of cloth diapering, and yes, there is a whole separate world just for this, and household sustainability. In 2020, pregnant with my second child, the pandemic hit. We moved to Virginia to be closer to my spouse's family. I've lived in your district, Senator, since early 2021. Before we moved, I told my spouse that if we were moving near DC, then we were going to become more politically active. I was tired of feeling like I was just having an impact in my own household and wanted to be part of something bigger. I had this increasing sense that climate change was something I wanted to do something about. So I Googled climate organizations and I found the Chesapeake Climate Action Network and CCAN Action Fund. Through volunteering and continuing to educate myself on climate justice, my conviction that this is an all-hands-on-deck moment only grew. And along the way, I found other people who were also rising to the occasion, some of whom are in the room with us now. These really felt like my people. They saw the importance of small and large actions, from composting to advocacy, that would help us all work toward a livable planet for future generations. But as the parent of 2 young kids with a full-time job, I was having a hard time juggling everything. I came to the realization that what I really wanted to do was devote myself full-time to activism. So late at night on Earth Day in 2022, I sent that resignation letter and declared myself for the climate. Eventually, after many hours of volunteering and online learning, I got my job at CCAN. All of us here have other jobs too, as teachers, lawyers, analysts, parents, grandparents, and more. We all have this in common. We feel a strong conviction to spend our time fighting for what is precious. All of us sitting in front of you today at some point made the chance to join CCAN and to step outside of our comfort zones by lobbying lawmakers like you because we care about our communities, our families, and the future. That is what brings us here today. Senator, as lawmaker, you have such a valuable role to play in this all hands on deck scenario. And so today we're asking for your support in passing a Make Polluters Pay bill that would recover financial damages from fossil fuel companies that have had a measurable negative impact on the state's assets and on our communities, and would instead put that money into a fund that would increase our state's resilience and provide relief to communities impacted by extreme weather. During the past few years alone, I've read about more and more extreme weather happening around the world, and it's happening closer to home. I heard about the air quality impacts of wildfire smoke talking to my sister on the phone who's in the Bay Area, and then the next year I experienced it here as smoke drifted down from wildfires in Canada, and I kept my children indoors on what should have been the most beautiful days of the year. I've knocked on the doors of community members here in Nova whose homes have been repeatedly damaged by flooding. These events are becoming more frequent and closer to home because of burning fossil fuels. Just as big oil is required to help pay for the aftermath of an oil spill, they should be required to help pay for these climate disasters caused by decades of burning fossil fuels and willful misinformation. It's the fair thing to do, the right thing to do, and financially the sensible thing to do to help communities recover from the damages caused. In this moment, the Trump administration is gutting important federal programs like FEMA that help people recover from natural disasters. State-level action is more important than ever, and that makes your power as our state senator more important than ever. If you take no action, Virginia communities will get left behind, with everyday people left shouldering the financial burden of putting our communities back together. If you do take action and support this bill, the costs to big oil will be a drop in the bucket, but that money will go directly to making our infrastructure more resilient and to helping our communities and our children's communities recover should extreme weather happen. And extreme weather will happen. Senator, can you support this bill? It was about.
All right. Thanks again so much, Ting, for that wonderful demonstration. So I just want to take just a couple of minutes and ask. Let me just, the first question I just want to ask is what stands out to you now watching this video for a second time? Is there anything that stands out to you about the story of self, or the story of us, or the story of now?
I think for me it's a sense of urgency. She's talking about the issues we're facing now, why we need to act now, why she's doing what she's doing now. It's very clear.
Yeah, a very clear sense of urgency, and an immediacy of like what can be done, what they can do right now too. Not just an urgent challenge, but an immediate choice. That's a great point. What else?
I noticed that she talked about just being an ordinary and very busy person, and but she made the choice to quit her job and to start working for CCAN and to be involved in campaigns. So it's something that everyone could relate to as a person.
Yeah, it's a really clear story of self. And on that point, Johanna, that I just, probably even after coming out of this training, if Ting were to do this live, right, like it's just it could be a perfect segue and connection to talking about the personal choices, the significant choices that you've all made personally, and even more an opportunity just to like connect to the experiential us in the room. Yeah, absolutely. Just as an example of how it can be molded to different situations. What else stands out?
The first time we watched it, struck me more was the effort for putting a job and embarking on she can career. Whereas this time, because you told us to, I paid a bit more. I was paying a bit more attention to how she framed it from the perspective of trying to get that legislator to sponsor or vote for the Make Polluters Pay bill, and tying our own experience in with the stories about how weather disasters are becoming more frequent, and the kind of unfairness of fossil fuel companies have known about this, have been contributing to this for a long time, and so kind of melding her story in with that commentary and to create this just sort of desired message to the legislature.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really clear story of now. Really, really clear story of now. Great. And you know, the last thing I'll say is that really continues to stick with me is I'm just in that, you know, I'm in that mode where in the beginning of Ting's story where like I'm in my like bedroom with my partner and I've got like this big choice of something I've got to make. And I feel myself with Ting like pacing and the weight of that choice. And so that particularly the beginning just really, really Ting draws you in and you stay there with her. So so I encourage you all to lean into those like the sensory details and just like the that allow for folks to be in the space with you. Okay, great. So I want to get into doing the practice for the linked public narrative. So we'll take we'll take about 48 minutes or so to do this practice. So I'm gonna go ahead and create breakout rooms for folks to use. But what we'll want to do is that you'll take just 5 minutes to review the meaningful moments from the story of self, us, and now. We'll just have about 5 minutes for you to just link these pieces together that you've already drafted. And then I think we should just start practicing and telling the story and building that muscle. So we'll have an opportunity, I think, for most people to get that practice in and get some feedback, and then we'll come back here at about 2:50, and we'll have the opportunity for probably 2 folks to share, and then we'll talk quickly about next steps and wrap up at 3. So I'm going to Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. We've just got 7 minutes, so we might have just one person share. We'll see how it goes. 1, maybe 2 people at most. And then we'll talk through next steps and make sure that we wrap up by 3. Before we have someone share, I wanted to give a secret that I shared with the DC team, which is the story of self, us, and now, the public narrative, those components, they don't actually have to be sequential in that way. There's not a particular order in which you tell a story, right? You could start off with a story of us, or you could start off with a story of now. It's just that I believe / we believe that these are important elements, compelling elements to make a comprehensive public narrative that move people and communities, actors towards action. So it could be could be, you could start off with anywhere in with the story. Okay. So I think we've got Aaron from the DC team. Aaron, are you up for just sharing your complete public narrative? We'll give you maybe about 3-4 minutes, and then we'll move into next steps.
Sounds good.
Go ahead. Floor is yours.
So, a bit about myself. Growing up, I was an Animal Planet kid. My parents didn't allow Disney or Nick in our house, and I am confident that I'm a better person for that. Grew up on Animal Planet, had the Planet Earth Monopoly in my basement, still do. And that really, I've found that when you learn about something, an issue like that at such a young age, when you're really like becoming a person, I guess, it becomes like important part of you, like you start to intrinsically value it. So that's a bit about how I came to love environment and how I got into the environmental advocacy scene. Fast forward to elementary school, I helped start my school's green committee, where our big project was getting a compost program up and running. We did all the work ourselves, the kids with one teacher helping us out. We went around from class to class, explaining to our classmates, to our friends, to our teachers and our former teachers how this composting program was going to work. And each week we go from class to class, empty out the bin, take it to the playground and mix it in with all the dirt and the leaves. And it was a really exciting time. And that's sort of how I got into the actual action side of things. In college, I was always on the fence between pre-med and getting to more of the climate advocacy scene as a career. And I was sitting in an environmental policy seminar that I was taking, focused on the Chesapeake Bay region where I'd lived my whole life. And I sort of had the realization, what the hell am I doing? I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's really important to me. I'm really enjoying the perspective that I'm gaining from the different people in this room. I need to just go down this route. And so just like that, decision was made, didn't think about it too much. One of the easiest choices of my life. And sort of just threw myself into it from there, reaching out to different climate organizations, reaching out to different people I know who are in the space, and trying to just fully go for it. So now speaking a bit about, I guess, this experience over this weekend and last weekend, I feel like I've started to learn a good bit about at least the different people on the DC team. I had my formal one-on-one with Wes, who's sitting across from me, and I could really tell how important community was to him, and that really resonated with me. Community can be hard to come by these days with how online we are, and sort of seeing the importance of weaving that into whatever social justice movement it is that you're working on became really apparent to me and really stuck with me. And then this morning when I happened to get on the same bus as Peter to come to the training, I really was impressed by how curious and how open-minded he was. And again, that really felt like a shared value within this space. And so I really wanted to figure out exactly how those would go together, because here we are all wanting community, all wanting to learn. And then when figuring out what to ask about, I thought of this upcoming DCCCAN event that we're going to be hosting. It is going to be a seminar style panel event where people get to hear from public health experts and community members who've been affected by methane gas issues, which is what the DC team is really focused on at the moment. I'd really encourage everyone to show out. It's going to be at this really cool venue called the Arc. Haven't been there, but I've really heard great things about it. And there's going to be a really great combination of community and learning going on in this space. It's on May 22nd from 6 to 8, and I'm really looking forward to it. If you're feeling really crazy, I'd love to have anyone help phone bank with me to recruit more people to come out. If you've never phone banked before, it's very chill. You talk to people and they're excited to hear from you and excited to learn. That's a really common theme in this movement, I found. And then when you show up to the event and actually learn the people's names and learn more about them, the people you've spoken to on the phone, you get to actually meet them and see how your actions translated. So yeah, would love to see you all out there. Again, if you're feeling crazy, you can phone bank with me. It's fun. I haven't picked a time yet, so No one can say that they're not available. And yeah, would love to see you there.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Give a round of applause to Aaron. Okay. Y'all, my apologies. I may just go just 2 minutes over. I want to give just 1 minute of fire round feedback and then coaching and then highlight just the next steps here for y'all. So just the first thing I would say, Aaron, just really clear story of self. There's just really clear like the motivation for that you grew up with for wanting to have maintain green spaces, protect the climate, protect the environment. You talked about composting at school, being part of the Green Committee, and you talked about the challenge of finding this community and identifying a community of folks as an adult now that you can be doing organizing work with. And so I just really clear choices, particularly story of self and the story of now and the story of us. I loved how it's coming together. The one question which we don't have to gauge on now, but I would encourage you to follow up with Isla about is you mentioned moments with Wes and with Peter where you said Wes recognized the value of community, that there's a mutual recognition of that. You named being impressed by Peter's curiousness. The one thing I would say is are the storytelling is an opportunity to show, not tell. Right? So if instead of just saying that there was a mutual recognition of the value of community, sharing the moment where it happened, right? Like highlighting the moment where it happened, leaning into the moment. So that's the one sort of main point just of coaching and feedback to think through, but really, really amazing. It was really, really good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. I'm not going to share my slides again just to save time, but I want to say just first of all, thank you all to all of you from across literally DC, Maryland, and Virginia for showing up. Coming out of this training, we have about almost 20 folks, 20 people who have really made a very clear declaration about their desire to continue to escalate in their leadership in this movement and this work. And that is just so exciting to me, but also is what we need to meet the challenge of the moment in front of us. So there's a couple of things to do. One is just coming out of this, every one of you should schedule a one-on-one with somebody else in the group or with the organizer, with Isla, with Ting, with Dustin, with Beth, Lianis, Dali, and it's an opportunity just coming out of this training to continue to practice your relational meeting skills, your public narrative, talk through it, practice it, continue to refine it. So schedule a one-on-one. Identify an opportunity where you would like to be using your public narrative in community spaces. The narrative can be adopted to doing things like going to do canvassing, or it could be adopted to going to meet with legislators. It could be, you want to go talk to your church or your synagogue about signing that Make Polluters Pay petition, getting folks to distribute. Like, there are so many ways in which this tools can be used to help build our power and organize our people. And so as a part of this one-on-one that you do and the follow-up coming out of this, particularly with any organizer, thinking about the things that you are really interested in doing that you think move the ball forward on our climate justice issues. Number 3, just do a one-on-one with someone in your network and help recruit them for our next Power Hour, which is our new member orientation. So anybody who's like you think might be interested in climate, but they haven't started with anything, you want to get them involved. Our next Power Hour, which is our new member orientation. So they just learned, it's a 101 basically on CCAN and how we do our work. It's virtual. It's going to be June 17th from 7 to 8 p.m. This next week, the organizers will share information about that. So you could practice doing the one-on-one, recruit one person just to come to that. The fourth thing is talk with the organizers and with your leadership, your volunteer leadership, about just setting up for the next membership event in the area. Maybe there isn't a membership event that's scheduled. Thinking about like Johanna thinking about for Montgomery County. I'm sure Beth would love to talk to you, looking maybe a month out or so. You know, is there something we want to do in the community that could just be a way to meet more people and get more folks to connect with each other on climate? And the last thing, as I wrap up, is if you got lunch today and you're joining us virtually, the lunch is on CCAN. Please go ahead today. You do it like right now, it'd be great. Just send me your receipt. It's mustafa@chesapeakeclimate.org. I'll put my email in the chat. And of course, you could just also reply to the email that I've sent out before, but just send me your receipt so I don't get in trouble with our finance person. So thank you. Thanks so much, everybody. Really, really, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mustafa, for leading us.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
and all the other
Thank you
leaders.
too. And also just thank you to your coaches, to the facilitators, Dustin, Dave, and Leonis and Isla and Dolly put a lot of work into this. As some of them said, that this is the first time that they're facilitating this training, and they did a lot of work. So thank you to them for making